Right. So one thing about this particular app is that you have to set up a lot of items here. And I should mention at this point that because you're typing everything out in SpriteKit, that SpriteKit is a little bit more verbose than other environments. And verbose means that there's a lot of text. So in this case, for example, let's add in our spawn square 0. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll say square 0 is equal to sk sprite node. And by the way, you do need the two brackets here. And we're going to give it a color. Okay, and we'll just add in the off-white color for now. We're not going to select the colors right away, but what we are going to do is add in the square size. Okay, and that works out quite well. Okay, so we got the square and square size, and then what we need to do is we need to give a position for this. Okay, so we're going to say square 0 dot position is equal to CG point. Now we have to set up 4 squares here, and the way that we're going to do this here is we're going to say CG rect get mid x self dot frame, and then what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the square position offset. Remember that variable that we set up here. What this is going to do is it's going to take the middle of the x and then subtract it. So this is going to be the top left corner. Then we're going to go to CG rect get mid y self dot frame, and again we're going to, in this case, add the square position offset. Let's go to self dot add child is equal to square 0. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this 4 times, right? And so we have square 0. Let's do these one at a time. It's going to be square 1. Okay, square 1, and you just have to copy wherever square 0 is, it's square 1. But square 0 is going to be the top left corner. So in order to make it the top right, we just add the square position offset. Okay, so if we look at this here, okay, and if I just kind of run it, and it's not going to really run anything here. And the reason why it failed is because we need to just simply add in these square 2 and 3. So let's just do that here, and let me explain how this works. So the CG rect get mid x puts it in the middle. Okay, and if you subtract from it, it moves it over to the left. Okay, if you add to it, it'll move it over to the right. So for the top left, you have to subtract from the from the x here and add to the y, because the y, if you add to it, will move up, and if you want it to move down, you have to subtract. So square 1 works. Let's say square 2, and square 2 is going to be in the bottom. So the mid x, we will subtract it, and we have to subtract both. We have one more to go, and that's square 3. Now, coordinates sometimes seem a little bit scary. What I suggest doing is trying and playing around with this if you don't get it. When you don't get something, the easiest way to learn is to play around and see what happens. At least that's my favorite way of doing that. All right, so we need to add the x value and subtract it. Okay, so now we should have 4 squares. So let's go back to our override function, and let's say self.background color is equal to off black color, and then we're going to go spawn square 0, square 1, square 2, and square 3. And there we go. All right, and look at that. I think that actually looks pretty good. So we have our 4 little squares here. And if we really wanted to, we could go and we could play around with the square size. We could maybe make it 170 and see if that would make it worse or better. And you want to play around with it. All right. That's why they have a playground in Swift. All right, and yeah, I think that also looks pretty good. We have the nice margin, and everything looks quite nice. So we have that right in the middle here. What we need to do now is we need to spawn the main label, the score label, and the timer here. So let's go to function spawn LBL main, and in that function we're going to say that is LBL main is equal to sk label node. And within this label node, we're going to add in a font name. My favorite font is Futura, so you can go ahead and add that in there. We'll go to LBL main dot font color is equal to off white color. LBL main dot font size, and we'll make that equal to 100. Nice big label here. We also need to add in a position. So LBL main dot position is equal to CG point, and we need an X and Y coordinate for that. So we're going to say CG rect get mid X self.frame, that will put it right in the middle, and then CG rect get mid Y self.frame, and that will put it in the middle. But we don't want that. We want to add to it. So let's say maybe 270. That's pretty good. If not, we can always say it's 250, and we can come back to that later if if we want to tweak it. Lastly, we need the LBL main.text is equal to, and we'll just say start. Self.addChild, and we're going to add in the LBL main. Okay, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it twice. The first time we're going to go to spawn LBL score, and in here it's going to be LBL score 1, and just simply move that here. Now instead of the Y adding to 170, we're going to subtract, let's say, 300 from it. So we could probably even subtract 350. And for the score here, we're going to type in the word score, and then backslash and bracket, we'll type in score. Spawn, we're going to go to LBL timer here. And in here, we're going to say LBL timer. All right. And everything is the same, by the way. The only thing, going back to the scores, we should probably make that something like 50. And the timer here, we'll just start off with as 10. Okay? So we'll start off here as 10, and we'll put this slightly above the score. So let's subtract 310 from it. Okay? And then we have to make sure that we add the timer here. So let's go back up to the top and let's spawn the LBL main, spawn score, and spawn timer. And let's go, and there we go. I think that looks pretty good. Couple things. Let's go and go to the timer here and maybe change this to something like 80. The size to be 80, and this will probably work out a lot better here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. 310 might be a bit too little here. Let's make it an even 300. All right, so make it an even 300, and there we go. We want to put it up here, and I still think that's just a bit too much, or a bit too little. So let's do 270. And at this point in time, you want to tweak it so that it works. But you don't want to over tweak it here. So maybe 290. And this will be the last time, whatever it comes out to be. And there you go. That looks pretty good. All right. This concludes the tutorial.